welcome to Physical Therapy, a movie podcast. We are here every week talking movies inspired by the world of physical media and beyond. My name is Kurt.
My name is Sam.
We are also joined by our producer, Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, boys. We have more boys, too.
Whoa, all the boys today.
So many boys.
We have two absolute returning champions of our show. Drew Hanks.
What's up, boys?
Is here. Hi, Drew.
Hey, boys.
Boys.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, Drew. And our old friend, Joel Jensen. Hi, Joel.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Kim.
Wow, Joel.
Wow, Joel, how professional.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
Pretty good. It's a big episode.
It's
a monster.
A monster.
It's a monster.
Yes, thank you.
Guys, this might be the most research I've done for an episode since we've started.
Oh, wow. I'm happy
I
to
can't
hear
wait to hear it.
Ooh.
I watched a lot of, can we say at this point?
Say it, Sam.
Dude, we're doing Godzilla as a franchise
Woo.
on the episode today.
Yes, we are. That is, of course, why Joel Jensen is here, who is our resident Godzilla expert.
That's an honorific I don't know if I deserve, but I do really deeply, madly love Godzilla. I would say that I think that the Godzilla films are the entire whole point of movies existing.
Wow.
Whoa.
The whole reason to have movies is for Godzilla movies to have eventually arrived and stayed.
Hell yes.
Joel, well, while you and I were living together, I don't feel like your love of Godzilla was as big as it is right now.
Yeah.
What changed?
I think for me, it's sort of it's an interesting thing where like it has some deep psychological roots. I think where I was like a huge Godzilla fan when I was a kid.
Yes.
And then I just at some point over like the past 10 years or so, like reconnected with that aspect of myself. I don't know why. I think it maybe has something to do with my own creative journey and like kind of reawakening to just how massively influential these movies, the character of Godzilla, the style of them, the effects work, how influential all of that is to every single thing I ever wrote or shot or made or imagined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just sort of like kind of seeing what was always there in a new light again.
When you were a kid, was it the original movie or the 98 version, or what were you watching?
What I didn't know at the time, but what I've come to understand it, and what I might end up talking about in a little bit, is I was like really into the like Heisei era Godzillas, which is like 90s basically.
Okay.
It's like the design that I most am familiar with. It's the like incarnation of Godzilla that I'm most familiar with, more so than like the Showa films, which is like the bulk that are like the starts with the original and then gets into like the kitschy 60s 70s stuff, but you know, like Godzilla versus King Kong was a big one for me. I actually bought that one for my nephew a couple years ago for his birthday to try to like get him connected to it.
Hell yeah.
But like that was a big one for me. That was one of the earlier ones. That's like the third Godzilla movie that they made.
You bought him a Blu-ray?
I did, yeah.
Hell yeah. I've seen a 35 millimeter print of that movie, which is awesome.
Dude, it's really silly, but it's really
Yeah.
just cool. It's awesome.
It's great.
How about you, Drew?
Yeah. Also on the episode today, we have, did we already do this?
Yeah.
Second intro.
Double intro is really funny.
Fuck you
I
guys.
grew up watching almost opposite of Joel. I watched a lot of the Showa-Era, and I think that's a little more common in like what they would play on like TV, and so like that's what I saw. And to touch on something I think, Joel, you were getting at is like your hesitancy in saying like I'm the biggest fan of Godzilla. You know that there's somebody out there who's much more passionate about Godzilla. When you know your blind spots. You know
right.
that there is that guy, and Godzilla, you know, obviously is one of those franchises where it's like there's people who worship Godzilla but don't necessarily worship cinema. You know, it is its own entity. It is its own monster, its own beast. I grew up watching a lot of the Showa-Era because that's just like what was on like the Svengoolie and like stuff like that. So from a young age, I would see like Godzilla versus Mothra with like dubs over it, and you know, all of those Destroy All Monsters and classics like that.
Yeah.
And the bulk of those movies were aimed towards like families and kids and stuff like that.
I think too, like a big factor is just like the merchandising of Godzilla, like the fact that you could just go buy a Godzilla toy and then just smash Legos with it. Like you don't even have to have seen the movies to be a massive fan. Like just that principle alone, it's like the single greatest idea anybody ever had for movies is to make a big monster that knocks shit over. There's no one's ever going to beat that.
Which isn't the term, isn't it kaiju?
Yes.
Kaiju, yeah.
It's like a kaiju culture kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Now Godzilla wasn't the first. King Kong actually was the first, is what I learned recently. Godzilla was basically like the third of this idea.
I had caught a screening, a 35 millimeter screening of the original Godzilla at the Academy, and the guy who introduced it mentioned how the original King Kong got re-released in Japan in the early 50s, and I think that coinciding with, I think it's The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Yep.
The success of those two releases at that time is what convinced Toho to make their own monster.
Marty, what about you? Like, what is your relationship to Godzilla?
It doesn't run deep. I honestly grew up probably only knowing Roland Emmerich's version. I don't think I saw the original until you were kind of getting into it again, Joel. I remember that kind of coincided with Criterion's releases of that first one on Blu-ray. And we'll talk about it, I'm sure, but they have just an unbelievable box set.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, it's so tight.
So I saw it for the first time then, and then I think we went to see Destroy All Monsters together at the Vista on 35. This was all also happening right when the Gareth Edwards version came out, right?
Yeah.
So I only really knew the 98 one and then the original, and it kind of remains that way. I watched one of the sequels for this episode that we'll talk about later. Two of them, I guess, technically. But I'm sort of on the early stages of it. I'm discovering kind of the nuances of it. And I think that's such a fun discovery about Godzilla for me, is I never took it very seriously, probably because I was basing it off of the Matthew Broderick version. But it obviously is tied to so many, very real world thematic kind of inspirations. There's a lot to unpack, I think, with the franchise.
Yeah, it's a really rewarding franchise to dive into because there's so much under the hood, both from like the heavy thematic stuff, but also the zaniness of so much of it, and the way they're cribbing from everything from like American war movies to James Bond movies to, pop B-movie sci-fi stuff. It's all represented across the spectrum of these movies. It's like really fun to dig in and see what you're getting in for with any one of them.
Yeah, each installment it can have a drastically different tone.
Yes,
100%.
I think that's the coolest thing about the franchise in general, is that like you take a franchise that has spanned the years that Godzilla has, like James Bond or something, but a James Bond movie is always pretty much a James Bond movie. Godzilla movies have so many different arcs and styles to them, so it's not all about giant monsters. Sometimes it's a sci-fi thing. There's the Mothra, tiny Japanese ladies like living on an island. There's just so much to love within the franchise, and then every movie with about 20 minutes left gets into a giant monster fight. I watched Destroy All Monsters and All Monsters Attack, which are about a year apart.
Very different.
Destroy All Monsters is like a alien race is coming to Earth and they're mind controlling people. It's like a space alien movie more than it is a giant monster movie. And then All Monsters Attack is like a little kid getting bullied in Japan. And it's a lot of like shot on location shots versus Destroy All Monsters, which is almost all miniatures. There's a lot to love in both of those movies, but they couldn't be further from like sequels to one another.
And most of them are directed by Ishiro Honda. Like Destroy All Monsters and All Monsters Attack are both Honda over the course of like 2 years, knocking two out with like wildly different goals and styles, like creative goals. It's really interesting. Sam, what did you grow up loving Godzilla? How do you net out with it?
I was very like culturally aware of the character of Godzilla. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I think there was a Godzilla cartoon on when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then that led into the Roland Emmerich 1998 Godzilla movie, which my dad took us to see. And I remember my little sister turning to him in the theater and going like, "Did this really happen?" Like, she was like crying.
Yes.
Which is incredible. But That was my first Godzilla movie. So I knew about him like culturally, but I wouldn't say that I like really understood the franchise, nor was I a massive fan of it. When Criterion announced the original Godzilla as a standalone Blu-ray like years ago, I picked that up, and around that same time, the Hollywood Theater out here in Portland started showing a lot more of the original Godzilla movies. I went to see a lot of them and started to get more of an understanding just of the franchise in general.
So on this episode, we're going to talk about the original, which came out recently in a new 4K restoration from Criterion. We're going to talk about Godzilla Minus One, the 2023 sequel, and then we'll do some just general recommendations for some of the other sequels. Have you guys all seen the 4K from Criterion of the original?
Yes.
Yeah.
I watched the Blu-ray.
Marty and Kim got me the 4K, the new 4K for my birthday this year, which is very, very sweet.
Oh.
So thank you guys.
I also need to shout out my friend Travis, who let me borrow his Criterion Showa-Era box set of the Godzilla movies and Godzilla Minus One, which I'm now like, I got about 15 Godzilla movies in a cart across Diabolic and Orbit. So yeah, here we go.
So the original is part of that Criterion set. We can talk about that set.
Yeah.
It's how many movies?
15, I believe.
Something like that, yeah.
You know, you think of a Blu-ray box set being sort of a, you know, all the discs are, if you have them on your shelf, are stacked next to each other. This is like a flat.
It's a book, man. It's a coffee table book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a coffee table book.
Yeah, so it doesn't fucking fit on your shelf, which is honestly really bothersome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I always sort of avoided it for that reason. I was like,
Yeah.
I have no idea where this would go.
Yeah, it's cool, but very impractical.
Man, but I don't think I'd ever like held it in my hands. And going to Travis's house and picking it up and holding it in my hands, immediately my thought was like, fuck, I gotta buy this now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Originally, they had released that and then a standalone Blu-ray of the original. The 4K just came out last November and includes a full-blown restoration that I did do like an A/B of, Sam, and is like stunning. They cleaned it up so
really?
much. It's crazy how, you know, the Blu-ray looks very sort of not bad, just has a lot of film, you know, scratches, elements. Yeah. This restoration is like shockingly clean. Let's talk a little bit about what this movie's about. I'll leave it to maybe you, Joel, if you would.
This movie it's interesting because it is, as Drew mentioned, came about largely because of other box office successes in the like monster realm of King Kong and the creature from a billion fathoms. But, you know, Japan, obviously this is coming off of World War II before the economic turnaround started to happen. So it was a pretty tough time in Japan, obviously. Right before they made this, there was an incident involving a fishing boat, this Japanese fishing boat that got too close to a H-bomb test at Bikini Atoll. And the fishermen all got like terrible radiation poisoning and died these horrible deaths. And it was some people in Japan looked at it as like a third, you know, like A-bomb attack, like the equivalent of it, because it was like such a sensitive time and it was such a tragic incident that could have been avoided. And basically where Godzilla came from, and this is probably pretty general knowledge, this is probably not new to anybody, but is a way of like metaphorizing the trauma of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then with this fishing incident, this sense of inevitability of destruction, these like uncontrollable forces. Japan was like not able to have a standing army. They felt very vulnerable as a people. It was a very confusing time. And so, you know, on the one hand, there is prolific movie studios briefing, you know, like seeking their own monster. And then there is Ishiro Honda, who wants to turn that concept into a political statement about, you know, atomic warfare and warfare in general. And so that's really where the origins of Godzilla come from, and why like the opening of this movie is about fishing boats being blown up by something invisible, which is kind of an encapsulation of Honda's view on what is terrifying about atomic and nuclear warfare.
It's pretty on the nose. Like,
yeah.
The fisherman who died of radiation poisoning in real life was their radio man, I think. And, you know, as soon as you see this fishing boat exposed to this atomic light, you know, of Godzilla in the beginning of the film, it cuts to the radio man. He's the first kind of single person they zone in on, like getting blasted with water or whatever out of frame.
I also just got to say, like, in terms of filmmaking and dramatic timing, like, a phenomenal opening scene.
It's so good.
Like, puts you right there. You understand what's going on. It's scary, but like not too scary. Like, you could show, as you said, Joel, like your nephew, you know, like something like you can show a younger person in your life, but it still might, you would get a reaction out of them. Phenomenal filmmaking.
This movie came out in 1954. Godzilla himself in the film is largely, if not entirely, a suit. You know, it's a guy wearing a monster suit. And by today's standards is not what I would call scary. But I think it's important to remember that the experience of seeing this in 1954, you know, we've talked about the kind of cultural relevance of it and how potent that would have been at the time. But also, like, at the time, this would have looked believable. You know, I think this movie scared people legitimately.
One thing too that kind of gets lost when people talk about Godzilla is that, like, it also experimented and pioneered a lot of composite matte shots is like another like aspect of its technical like prowess, something that is like beyond so common today. I feel like every shot that you see in a, you know, big release movie is some sort of a composite shot,
essentially meaning it just has multiple layers to give an effect of scale of, you know, a monster in a small city or whatever.
Right. So like Godzilla peeking over the hillside mountain top is like, we film the actual hillside and then we composite that with a shot of Godzilla approaching in like the top section of the third of the frame.
But dude, like, even having seen this movie, rewatching it for this, like, I rewound that scene like 3 times because when his head pops up, it is so cool.
Yeah.
It looks awesome. I don't give a shit that it was made in 1954. It still looks, while being kind of silly, awesome.
When I saw that film screening, it was a full house at the David Geffen Theater of this film print, and like the second that he peeked over, you know, everyone broke out in like a gasp and then an applause. You know, it was like that feeling of seeing like a new release, like a new movie. The context was all there because it was all filled with like fans and everything, and that's like, it's weirdly gotten to be a rare thing to see that like original film on film and that original cut. You know, I'd equate it to like seeing Oppenheimer on IMAX 70 millimeter like opening night. You know, like it was that like epic of a screening, like, and I think it was like 50 years to the date of like original release.
70 probably, Drew.
70. Was it 70? Was that the birthday?
No, 70 years, right?
70. Yeah, absolutely. It was 70. It is, I think its power still is there to this day. It is a true classic that will withstand the test of time.
Visually, it is so striking because it is shot and designed and choreographed so charismatically. Like, it doesn't have to be as like, you know, so terrifying that it drains the blood from your face to still be very awe-inspiring to see these shots. And I, even on this last watch, I was like thinking to myself, across the whole movie, they are using so many different techniques and like filmmaking techniques to create senses of scale, to create the action, to create just like well-composed shots that you are constantly, your like eyes and brain are constantly on their heels trying to like you're getting hit by a different technique in almost every sequential shot that you see. So you're never ahead of their effects, which I never really have thought about very much, but it's like you were saying today, like so much of the movies that are being made today are like pretty flat comped shots using the same effects, and so your brain gets ahead of it and stops believing, rather than in this movie you're just, you know, the effects are quote unquote primitive in some ways, but they're so immersive because you're still trying to like keep up with them.
And like the resulting stew is an aesthetic that is very believable, you know, as its own thing. You know, my allergy to CGI is boiled down basically just to, there's no sense of how they do that because there's only one answer to that question now.
Yep.
What's cool about the original Godzilla is that it's 1954 technology with a movie that's set in 1954. And so it's kind of easy to brush it all under the rug of like, oh, it's an old thing, you know, like they'll improve it later. But so much of this technology is still used today. They just cover it all up with CGI. And there's something so charming about watching that original Godzilla and being there and seeing the miniatures, but the way they cover the miniatures with insert shots of the actors acting out driving a train, right? Like it helps cloud our judgmental eye, I guess.
Yeah, and it just feels like a pure, sincere form of storytelling.
Yes.
that it just absolutely wraps you up in itself.
So Godzilla is awakened by H-bomb testing. Essentially, he is a dormant, prehistoric, aquatic creature. I mean, I guess he's always been aquatic, right?
Was it a trilobite? Is that what they always call it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when they're picking up the scales after his first attack. Wait, let me ask a question. Godzilla as a creature, there's like multiple Godzillas, right?
Technically, yeah.
If one dies at the end of one movie, like that mantle of Godzilla gets passed on to another kind of aquatic prehistoric creature, correct?
More or less. There's like different takes on that over the course of the series, but yeah.
Okay.
So more or less, right? Godzilla begins to attack. I think it's Tokyo. Is it Osaka or Tokyo?
I think it's Tokyo.
In their haste to find a weapon that can defeat Godzilla, a scientist named Shizawa has created what he calls the oxygen destroyer, which is a weapon that I don't know what the technical explanation of it really is, other than like it's an oxygen destroyer and it vaporizes the flesh of anything it comes in contact with, especially in water.
Yeah.
And all you need to know is that this scientist is a kind of sweaty, anxious man with an eye patch.
Yeah, he's a fucking badass, dude.
Yeah, important to know.
This scientist also happens to be in love with a woman who is engaged to be married to, like, let's just describe him as like a young Tom Cruise, like a fucking hot, slick, noble, good man. So there's like this love triangle at work as they're also trying to find a way to defeat Godzilla. You know, conventional military means are of no effect. Tanks shoot him to no effect. He stomps on them, no biggie. They try a variety of stuff. None of it works. To just really fast forward it to the end, Shizawa says like, hey, my oxygen destroyer, if we scale it up, would be powerful enough if we could get Godzilla into Tokyo Bay. I can use this oxygen destroyer and kill him, but it's like such a super weapon that the world cannot know how I made it, because if it gets out, we will have something far worse than atomic warfare to be contending with. And I morally cannot permit that to happen. I cannot have that blood on my hands, which is so fascinating.
So good, dude.
It's one of the reasons why this movie works so well and timelessly, especially stacked up. The Brunt are not, I would say, timeless movies unless you're just very charmed by it. But like this moral dilemma that this scientist has is really powerful. And his solution basically is like, all right, I'll use it. Everybody's prevailing on him. Please use it. Please use it. So he decides to do it, but without telling anybody, he decides to use it while he's down in Tokyo Bay with Godzilla alone. And he kills himself. He sends the other handsome hunky guy up to safety before he detonates it, kills himself. He's burned all of his notes. So the weapon works. It kills Godzilla. It kills him and any scrap of explanation as to how this weapon worked. So he like wipes all of it clean. He knows that he can't let himself live, because even if he attempted to keep his lips sealed, he knows that eventually somebody would get him to spill the beans and he would unleash the single worst weapon humanity has ever known, and it is not worth it to him. So he sacrifices himself, and Godzilla is killed and dissolved at the bottom of the bay, and that's the end of the movie basically. And then it ends with Ogata, who's the hunk, basically being like, hey, as long as atomic bombs keep getting tested, there might be another Godzilla that pops up somewhere else. That's the last line. But yeah, I mean, that's a very crash course summary.
The scientist's dilemma is like perhaps the most poignant atomic warfare kind of crisis drama in the whole thing.
I think it's so interesting, though, to have the people of Japan who have just had this terrible atrocity brought on them with the nukes being dropped. They're the ones being like, we can't, like a scientist in Japan being like, I've come up with a better or more fucked up weapon, and I will not put it out into the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's like one of the main reasons why these movies live on in pop culture. Like, it's such a moving moment of that movie.
Yeah. The moral weight of that decision is incredible. And it's like the Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, just because you thought you, or it doesn't mean you should. It's like a scientist answering that on that same like ethical term, but making the right choice. And I really just I was like watching it being like, man, I wish that we lived in a world where more people were like Suzawa, where like you'd be like, dude, this can't happen. And the fact that I know how to make it happen means I should fall on my sword.
Yeah.
Like this stuff has to be contained. And sometimes you have to make a hard choice. I think it's worth talking about too, just like how good and iconic the score is.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude.
It is so striking, and it has survived through every era, through the like Americanization of it to today. Like 70 years later, that score is still cranking. It's one of the like less obvious pieces of mastery that went into this movie to make it such a forever classic.
One release that I have, I think it's a Heisei. It's Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. I think it's like the first one they made after Akira died, and they had to like hire a new composer, and they didn't reuse like his iconic cues. And then like the one right after it, which is Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, it's like immediately they're using all the cues. You know what I mean? It's
we're sorry.
Yeah. And you know, of course it's a new composer, so he does like filler stuff and, you know, all that. But like, yeah, every time Godzilla appears or there's a call to action, there's the call to action cue that's like equally as iconic as Godzilla arriving. Yeah, the score is just as iconic as the visuals.
On the rewatch of this original Godzilla, I watched it kind of early in the morning, and the minute the music cue of him arriving into Tokyo started, I was like, man, what hip hop song like samples this? So I Googled Godzilla theme sample in rap, and it's the Pharaoh Monk song Simon Says.
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because it's that cue that comes in.
Boom, 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 boom.
Boom. Yeah, it's so good, dude. It's so good. And like, I heard that song in 7th grade before I had seen any other Japanese Godzilla movies ever. And I still remember it to this day because that theme is so incredible that my mind cannot separate the two.
Let's talk about Godzilla Minus One. A movie I had not seen until the other day.
Ever?
Had not seen it.
What's your take?
I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
Dude.
Masterpiece.
Yeah.
I saw this movie in theaters, and when I sat down to watch it the other day, I realized that I'd had maybe 4 too many beers when I saw it in theaters. And rewatching it at my house, I was blown away by this movie. Like, completely blown away by it.
This movie begins, is it a year before the original film starts? Is that why we call it Godzilla Minus One?
I think so.
It starts in 45.
Yeah, and it spans several years, this story, so it goes past the original.
There's a cultural, I'm trying to remember exactly what the cultural significance of that terminology of minus one. I think it's, I could be totally wrong. My American white guy is showing, but like there was like a counting of once the bomb dropped, I believe. And so like then that's like year 0 in Japan or something to that degree. So like this
interesting
taking place when it did, it's like Godzilla Minus One. Don't quote me on it, but I think that is the significance of titling it something like that.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's necessarily supposed to tie into the original directly.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't. I mean, event-wise. It opens with a Japanese pilot at the very end of World War II landing on a small island that serves as a sort of mechanic repair station for...
Well, he lands on Odo Island, which is a island that is spoken about in many other Godzilla movies. This is like straight lore from that franchise.
It's the island that in 1954 that like storm scene takes place on.
Yes.
Where they see him over the ridge. That's Odo Island in the original.
And I believe in Destroy All Monsters, it's the island that they're living on, which they've renamed Monster Island.
I think so, yeah.
This pilot is a kamikaze pilot who has basically abandoned his post and refused to give his life. And while he is having his airplane, quote unquote, repaired, which there's nothing wrong with, and the mechanics sort of become suspicious of and discover that he's gone AWOL, essentially, Godzilla attacks. And everyone on the island, all the mechanics except for our lead and one mechanic, are killed. And the rest of the movie follows this pilot as he comes back from war And in what was, to me, maybe the most interesting part of this whole movie deals with like the shame that's put toward him, you know, for being a kamikaze pilot who's lived, which I thought was fascinating. I've never seen that in a movie. And Godzilla returns as this pilot is taken on a job working on like a mine sweeping boat. And in what I think is the fucking tightest scene of this whole movie, Godzilla attacks while they're sweeping for mines.
Dude.
So good.
Oh my God, that scene.
And is like swimming after this little, it's like a little tugboat made out of wood because the wood on the boat won't set off a mine, a magnetic American mine. And Godzilla's chasing them just with his mouth open, like a giant, you know, crocodile just after these guys. And they're dropping mines and trying to get them into Godzilla's mouth and like set them off while shooting like machine guns at it. Dude.
This was the scene where I was like, oh, I was way too drunk the first time that I saw this movie because I didn't remember this scene at all. And like for 10 minutes, my eyes were glued to my TV. I was on the edge of my couch. Like nothing else mattered. There was a cat meowing. It was like wild. And it's an incredibly tense, cool, well shot, well directed, well executed, awesome action scene.
Yeah.
But like, it's not a bunch of dudes like storming a building. There's not a bunch of like, it's so different than a lot of action scenes we've been given in the past 10 years.
Yeah. What sets this apart from like practically, this is the perfect like entryway Godzilla movie. If you've never seen any Godzilla movie, this is like, one could argue the original is like the perfect entryway, but this is right up there. And if you're listening and you've never seen a Godzilla movie, you should probably start with this one. This is like, it has characters that have drives, you know, and like that kind of doesn't always fit into these movies, as basic as that sounds, but like you have a clear cut dilemma, like for the character, like right when it starts, the movie starts with the plane landing on that, you know, it's this shame, the disgrace that we're talking about. You could take Godzilla out of this movie and there would still be a good movie there, you know.
Tonally, it's pretty 1-to-1, I would say, with the original as well. Like it's very serious, emotional.
I think this one's more emotional.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe that's just due to, you know, the 70-year difference between the two movies, but I did it the first time I saw it. I wept through this movie.
It's like borderline maudlin, that performance the guy gives when he's like screaming up to the sky with like the nasty
grease raining on him.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Just his like high pitched squealing. It's like, yeah, he really bears it all as an actor, like 100%.
I also find like one of the most fascinating parts of the movie is the relationship story of this guy who has, you know, who is ashamed, has horrible PTSD, has lost everything in his life, encounters like a young woman who, by all indications, is herself homeless and has taken on the care for a orphan child. And they kind of do like a time lapse of their relationship over the course of a couple of years, where they create this kind of makeshift family. They repair some wounds with one of his neighbors who was very cruel to him about surviving the war. And over time, their efforts to kind of rebuild a life together becomes very beautiful to watch. And our hero and this young woman like don't take on a romantic relationship. They don't have a sexual relationship, but they have a genuine love for each other that also creates this like very cool dramatic tension of like, are they in love with each other? Are they going to get married? And they like clearly both want to get married, or have been thinking about it, but kind of miss each other like boats in the night on that conversation, and which leads to tragedy ultimately. It's such a sad but also really just in the wake of the bombings and like Japan rebuilding, so interesting just to see a little relationship drama like that unfold within the confines of a big crazy Godzilla movie.
Yeah, like you said, Drew, you take out Godzilla and that movie right there is amazing.
Yeah.
100%. There's touches, obviously, of the original Godzilla. There's touches of Jaws. There's touches of Dunkirk. Like, it's it's a very, like, wonderfully unique and modern film. To go back to like talking about like the compositing shots, like there's so much of that, it just brimming with love and like passion and like inventiveness. Probably one of the first like very, very, very computer generated movies that I like wholeheartedly love. And I'm like, that's the only way you could have made this movie, and like the artistry behind it. I mean, obviously they won the Oscar for this, but it was so well deserved. You know, they shouldn't have even nominated anything else, you know?
Yeah.
It's fascinating because the writer-director Takashi Yamazaki also led the visual effects. And, you know, I'll be honest, I watched this and my only real critique of it was that the CG was just okay. You know, I thought the design of everything was amazing, but the believability of it all, I felt was subpar, I guess, to like other movies at its scale, or what felt like would be at its scale. And then I looked at the budget.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Isn't it like $5 million or something?
It's listed between 10 and 15, but
oh my gosh.
this feels like a $200 million movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks way better than most $200 million movies.
Yes.
God, I wish I could remember like how the budget for the VFX is like what they would pay like one, you know, person
one shot.
in
Yeah,
US.
probably.
Like it's unbelievable. I think there's like 10 people or something like that on the VFX team. Like
Good
something.
Lord. All you have to do is watch any Hollywood film and stick to the credits and look at how many artists, VFX artists, contribute to movies at this scale. I mean, the fact that, that the budget is so low and that the personnel number is so low. As soon as I learned all that, I was like, never mind. This is perfect.
Yeah, it's like an indie movie. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that the assault on Ginza, when he makes landfall and just completely destroys that city.
You see his like scales charging up with this blue
God.
atomic power.
Dude, every time he like shoots his heat ray out in this movie and he charges and his scales raise out of his back is some of the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life. Again, I watched my friend's borrowed copy of his 4K. Like the sound design's incredible. My walls are rattling as I'm watching it. He's charging up to shoot a fucking blue flame out of his mouth. Get out of town, dude. That is what you go to the movies for. That shit looks awesome.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
This is why movies exist. Period.
Yes.
This is it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, on top of like the artistry behind the visual effects and like the clear love, if you've seen a single Godzilla movie that came out before this, that you can tell, but like there's also just this like deep understanding and respect for the man in the suit era of Godzilla that is translated to this computer generated Godzilla. Take a look at the, current American Godzilla versus Kong, Godzilla X Kong, if you want a comparison of like how much thought, meditation, and care is put into the Godzilla Minus One Godzilla. Because like Godzilla and like Godzilla X Kong, you would see at like Riot Fest, like sipping a tall boy or something. You know what I mean? Like
Joel.
This is just like
Joel.
so.
Joel's making a face.
I'm not going to lie, dude. My hot take is I fucking love the new Kong versus Godzilla movie.
Don't get me wrong. I love it too. I have it on 4K as well.
baby.
Like I love it too. I'm just saying like, not my Godzilla. You know what I mean? Like
I'm totally with you.
this is just like, it really is a masterpiece right up there with the original.
I always think of it as like the spiritual successor to the original in that it is, because the original, we didn't really talk about it as much, the tone of it, but it is it's like a dirge. It is so sad. Godzilla himself in that movie looks like he is in pain merely by existing. He looks like an abomination who hurts.
He did not want to be woken up.
Did not want to exist. And this movie, in rooting it in a story about shame and PTSD the way it does, and it like carries this sense of inevitable doom that like there is no workaround here. There is only implacable forces of destruction out there. And just by being like that mournful, it like really recaptures a lot of that feeling.
I didn't really realize until revisiting this sort of how invincible he is. I mean, most of these movies are just about them trying to figure out how the fuck to even hurt him. In Minus One, we talked about that sequence where he's chasing the boat. They managed to get one of these aquatic mines into his mouth and they shoot it with a machine gun. It explodes. It blows his face open. His cheek, is gone.
And he kind of floats like almost dead for a second. We think,
It's like stunned.
the people have won.
And then very quickly, his cells regenerate and he's back to normal, and the futile kind of battle against him is very entertaining in all these movies.
Yeah.
Watching, because they each have their own, sort of scientific solution.
Mm-hmm.
He is attacking, he's destroying cities. Like, there's really no sympathy for him. He's the worst in Minus One. You keep being like, please leave these people alone. Like, they've been through enough. Please leave them alone. And he just rolls in and destroys everything.
Kim's on Team Zilla.
Dude, part of me was too.
I have a hard time kind of watching these because I just root for the monster.
Well, but that's like what's so fascinating about these movies is like, that's not accidental. Like,
no, I know. But I hate the people. I'm like, honestly, like he deserves it. Just give him the world. I would bow down to him.
The cutest child actor of all time did not deserve that Godzilla destruction in Godzilla Minus One.
Tough.
Oh my gosh.
It is cool that he has like that. Our hero has such a personal fucking vendetta against Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like they really make it like this dude's like, I'm gonna fucking kill this motherfucker. He has fucked my life up so many goddamn times.
Yeah.
But it's like within the context of the larger franchise, it's very interesting. The relationship that humanity has and the audience has to Godzilla, where like in the first two, basically Godzilla is just fucking straight up evil, and like maybe like the intentionality because he's just doing what he's there to do is, you could talk about the philosophy of the morality of that if you want, but like he's basically just a bad guy in the first couple. Then over the course of like the rest of the Showa-Era, he becomes like a superhero basically for kids movies. And then like in the 90s, he becomes much more ambiguous or like ambivalent. By the end of the Showa-Era, he's like the protector of Earth. He protects Earth from extraterrestrial threats and shit. Then it gets a little bit muddier about whether he's good or bad or neither. And then when you get to the more current era, which is called the Reiwa era, which is currently just two movies, both mega bangers. This one, Minus One, and Shin Godzilla.
Oh, I've never seen Shin Godzilla.
Shin Godzilla is so fucking sick.
Yes.
It's
That's what I've
so
heard.
weird.
Yes.
But he's back to being just a menace again. Just like a monstrous force of destruction, pure and simple. And it's like very interesting to track that against, the other undercurrents in global culture and stuff. And it's like, yeah, we're at a time right now where Godzilla's just going to be fucking mean and bad.
But I'm still on his side. I still love Mean Zilla.
Kim, would you eat a piece of Godzilla if you had to?
No. Oh no. Would
I bet
you?
he'd eat a piece of you, Kim.
Godzilla flank steak?
No. Oh my God.
This is a 4K that came out directly from Toho, at least the one I have. I have like just a standard 4K. I think there are some pretty epic box set versions of this.
I got one of the box sets.
Oh, Drew.
I think they all have the Toho release of it's the same, whatever you'd call it, transfer or whatever,
Yeah.
which is a fucking monster of
Oh my God.
4K disc.
Fantastic.
Incredibly beautiful.
If Best Buy still played, whatever thing is the newest release to show off their TVs, this would be like a disc that they would throw in there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the one I borrowed is like a thicker cardboard sleeve that 4 discs pull out of, and it kind of unfolds on itself.
Damn,
Yeah.
I'm basic over here.
Mine it's a 4K, then the Blu-ray, then the minus color, the black and white. Which is so beautiful. Like,
Oh, it has a black and white version on it?
yeah.
What the fuck did I buy?
It's a region B release. The 4K obviously is all region, but yeah, all the Blu-rays Buyer Beware are region B, just as powerful. Like, they all have the Atmos track, so it's just fucking insane.
It's so loud, dude. It's
so
awesome.
loud. Yeah.
I would wager that those VFX look even better in black and white. That's
They do.
usually the case.
They do. Yeah, definitely.
The Mist, they have
The
that
Mist. Yeah.
black and white
the
version
Mist,
of the Mist.
Logan,
The special effects look much better in black and white.
Mad Max.
Yeah.
There's a great booklet that has a lot of interviews. It's like 68 pages. And they show the, different stages in which they turned the color image into black and white, which is very well done. There's also a really great making of documentary that I don't think is included on the US release.
Nope.
Not trying to brag, but it is really, really cool to see how piecemeal they would shoot this stuff. Like, it is like next level compositing, just like they are filming just like one wall stuff, or like just the train, or like just the house. Like, it is very, very, very meticulously pieced together.
Oscar worthy, one might say.
Yeah.
I just want to speak to Toho. I had the privilege to go to Toho a few months ago.
Man, yeah, you did.
It was amazing. And I got to see them shoot one shot of an Ultraman episode they were making in the studio.
Damn.
And it was a man in the suit. And it was so abrasive, like this, like it was so much work. And I mean, there was a ton of like, it was just like a huge crew around all these miniatures and man in the suit, and just incredibly interesting how they shot this. But it was just like one shot and one movement. And I mean, it's just so mind boggling how much care they put into this sort of, this look and this like feel. It's all Toho owned, and it's very like, it's their style. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, what a legacy. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It's so cool that you got to do that, Kim.
I know.
So jealous.
Yeah. How much Godzilla shit's like throughout that studio?
I got to see the sound stages they shot Godzilla Minus One on, and I mean, there wasn't a lot. There's like a beautiful statue. I did get to see the original suit,
Dang.
which was awesome.
For our listeners, Kim is actually wearing that right now.
Yeah, I stole it. What really charmed me was when I was getting the tour of the lot. There's this beautiful Buddhist area in the corner of the whole lot itself, and one of the producers who worked on the film said that every morning before they started shooting, they would all like do a Buddhist chant together as a crew and just like really come together. And it was just like so much love for this, the making of this movie, and you can feel it when watching it. So
Wow.
yeah, they really hold on to the legacy, which is really special.
Yeah, and you can tell it's just made with so much respect.
Yeah.
And there's like, in that BTS thing, they like, anytime a cast member would rap, they would clap for them, they would give them flowers, they would, be able to say a speech, and just like give so much time and care to honor the people that like worked on the film. Any filmmaker can take lessons from that.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Yeah, highly recommend this one. Incredible climax, which we won't spoil, but just an amazing final bit. Like on your feet shit.
Dude, just like truly like tears streaming down my face as I watched it again this morning. My walls are very thin at my apartment, and I was going to finish it last night at about 11. I was like, dude, I don't want my neighbor knocking on the wall because I'm watching a city get destroyed by Godzilla right now. I'm just going to do it in the morning.
Let's talk a little bit about the sequels before we wrap this up. I'm going to kick us off because coincidentally, honestly, Criterion just released a new 4K sequel of the Godzilla movies called Godzilla vs. Biollante.
Yeah, baby.
And this is like the second era of Godzilla, right? Like this is like the 80s era. It's a bit different.
The year is 1989.
Okay.
This is the Heisei era.
Okay.
Joel, do you want to explain what these eras are?
Yeah, it's basically just they track these eras to who the emperor of Japan is at the time. So the Showa-Era films were during the Showa emperor's reign. The Heisei emperor, currently it's Reiwa. There is another era called the Millennium Era, which is like the late 90s, early 2000s, which is, it's only like a 4-year stretch. I don't really know why it is named that way. And then there's also like, technically there's like the legendary / Monsterverse era as well, which is happening alongside the Reiwa era. But yeah, that's why that's how it's divided up.
Godzilla vs. Biollante fucking rocks.
Dude, it rips so fucking hard. I was gonna bring it.
Okay, so I haven't seen this one, man.
It could not be
so good.
any different than the other two we've talked about. This is a movie about a scientist. This is a movie about a lot of things. Psychics. But a scientist whose daughter is killed in a terrorist bombing.
Erica.
Yeah.
Erica. He takes bits of her cells and bits of Godzilla's cells, a rose plant.
Yep.
What else is in there?
Well, it's an he's like a botanist, and he has designed immortal plants basically that can survive in any environment. So like ostensibly you could like have wheat fields in the Arabian desert.
Saradia, I believe, is the name of the country.
Yes, that's right.
The fictional, yes. And so he splices all these things together in order to create one of these plants, right? But the result is...
Well, he's trying to preserve his daughter's soul inside an unkillable plant.
Right.
Hell yeah.
So it's a morality study, just like the original Godzilla.
I think we should all do that to our cats.
Yeah.
Done deal.
But they're also trying to...
They're trying to like use this... Oh, it's
like an anti-nuclear bacteria.
Yeah, he's like helped pioneer this bacteria that eats nuclear material so they could like potentially neutralize all nuclear weapons, but also could create a far worse weapon. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like meant if another attack happens, they can use it to like basically eat away the radiation from a bomb having gone off. They are also using it to try to stop Godzilla. The result of this concoction of the scientist is a giant plant monster.
It's so fucking sick.
So sick.
With like all these tendrils, these vine tendrils at the front head of which are other monster heads.
Yes.
It's very Rick Baker-y.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Biollante's head too it's a rose. It's like a giant rose monster.
A wed woes.
And with like, and then in the middle of the rose is like a little mouth with big teeth. It's fucking so cool.
It's so cool.
There's a great fight between them halfway through the movie. At this point, I'm like in. And then there's a sequence where Godzilla fucks up a city. I forget which, but like a nighttime scene where he fucks up a city. And it's obviously, you know, this is a man in a suit still. And there's like an overhead shot of him destroying the city that they must have built like an entire, it looks like downtown Chicago if it was on a soundstage. Like it's like an overhead shot of like a river that's like curving through the whole room. Skyscrapers in the middle, on the sides, and just it's so the scale is so great, but it's like 80s style now. You know, it's 80s practical effects. Guys running around with machine guns. I think there's like guitar wailing, right?
Yes.
The music, the score in this is fucking crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It bounces between the like classic Godzilla stuff, but then there's like psych funk guitar music playing too.
And there's also a couple very vaguely Spielbergian cues that they use, almost like a Raiders type cue,
like a sound cue.
Yeah. Just
awesome.
It's just
Sam. It's straight up Invasion USA with monsters.
Yeah, I got a text from Kurt this afternoon that just said, "Dog, you're gonna need to buy Godzilla versus Biollante."
Biollante.
So incredible city destruction stuff, like 80s style again. I had never seen a Godzilla movie from this era, and it is just a pitch perfect recipe. And then, spoiler alert, Biollante returns, and there's a final climactic fight with him again. Her. That is like knocked me on my ass effects.
Yeah. Because so like one of the hallmarks of this era is that the Godzilla's enemies evolve over the course of the fights. So second form Biollante is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Huge. They're always end up bigger than Godzilla.
Yeah.
It has like an alligator face, but when it opens its mouth, it's all teeth all the way back.
Yeah.
Because it's also part Godzilla, Biollante. It's part human, part rose, and part Godzilla.
Yes.
That's Joel, if I ever could describe
I think
him.
it's beautiful.
That's the coolest shit in Dragon Ball Z and like other Japanese style animation and movies and everything. It's like the upgraded version is that much cooler than the original version. You're like, yeah, that's exactly what I want.
Dude, this is a side note, but just a little quick embarrassing story. As the other day in therapy, I was explaining how Super Saiyans work to my fucking therapist. You get some idea what I'm talking about.
There's this flying military ship in this movie that they use to fight Godzilla.
The Super X2.
Yeah, the Super X2. It looks like the owl from Watchmen.
Yes.
And the front of it opens up, splits open, and reveals a giant diamond-made mirror that they use to reflect back Godzilla's heat ray at him.
Yes.
Dang.
Like throughout the movie, they like are fighting him constantly by like trying to intercept these heat rays and shoot back at him. It's fucking sick.
Damn, I can't believe
Sam.
I need to pick this up. This one is
such
awesome.
a banger. It's such a banger.
This was always a favorite of mine. If you weren't familiar with that era, the Heisei era, that is the go-to one for me. Just to hear that Criterion was putting out a 4K of it, I was like, Kurt, come on, we have to talk about
I'm so glad you reminded me of the
insane.
timing.
I think if there's anybody out there who's just like, I don't know where to begin with Godzilla, these are three amazing releases that it spans, the run. And I think this is a unbelievable starter pack that you could do, and you get a great little look into these films.
One of the really nice things about Biollante too is it really hits a lot of the essential notes that come in the later Showa-Era movies, where there's elements of high science fiction, elements of espionage, spies, psychic mind control stuff. That stuff is all over these movies, and nobody you obviously never think about Godzilla equals spies, aliens shooting laser guns, corporations stealing secrets from each other and assassinating people, but that's all over the Godzilla franchise.
That's what I love about it so much, is that ultimately it's a franchise that's known for a giant monster that is a minuscule part of the franchise. There's so much more happening in all of the movies than just giant monsters fighting one another or giant monsters destroying cities. That is such a fun part. The same way with Destroy All Monsters, having just watched Destroy All Monsters, which I really like, and that's a really well-known Godzilla movie.
It's great.
And in about the last 20 minutes, all the monsters are fighting Ghidorah, King Ghidorah, and it's awesome. But I might like All Monsters Attack a little bit more, the one right after it. The practical effects of it in the beginning are really awesome, and it's just about a kid getting bullied, and then he dreams that he's on Monster Island and learns how to deal with a bully. Who would have fucking thought that that's in a Godzilla movie? It's so comedy, but it's awesome. It's such a fun franchise for that stuff.
Joel, do you have any other recommendations?
Yeah, I was going to talk about Biollante, but I suspected it might come up, so I watched a couple others. So I'm actually going to stick in the Heisei era with a 1995 release called Godzilla vs. Destroya, spelled weird, but basically it's this creature called the Destroyer. And the reason that I want to talk about it is because it's the last of the Heisei movies, and it sort of brings everything around full circle. So the idea is that going back to the original movie, the oxygen destroyer that they used to kill Godzilla actually awakens single cell organism from 2.5 billion years ago that is under the sediment of Tokyo Bay.
Yeah, it does.
Hell yeah.
So then we fast forward to 1995, and actors from the original Godzilla show up as cameo performances in this movie. There's some Lego sequel stuff happening in it, which is kind of interesting. But basically it's this monster that is awakened, kind of incubates for a while down there, and then there's a construction project to build a tunnel, a car tunnel underneath Tokyo Bay, which is the worst fucking idea in a world where Godzilla is real I've ever fucking heard. But as they're excavating the dirt, they find this other scientist who is working on his own experiments involving what he calls micro-oxygen, takes a soil sample because he thinks that he could introduce oxygen destroying substance to the soil and reawaken creatures that were alive before there was oxygen on Earth 2.5 billion years ago. Okay. Anyway, he does so. It escapes the lab and turns into this ever-growing monster that starts out as a whole bunch of monsters that look like velociraptors on top of crab bodies. They're crazy looking. And you have there's a sequence in it that's so heavily influenced by James Cameron's Aliens. They have the Steadicam guns in it. They have the motion tracking radars in it while they're in a building being hunted by these creatures.
Damn.
They eventually all the while, by the way, Godzilla is entering a nuclear meltdown. Like the nuclear reactor that makes his heart go starts superheating. So he's super powerful, but he's also on fire like the whole time. And they're like, if he hits 1200 degrees, he's going to explode, and it's going to be the single biggest explosion ever to happen on Earth. So we have to find a way to like stop Godzilla from exploding, stop Godzilla from wrecking cities. But then this destroyer comes and becomes huge over the course of the movie. And they're like, all right, we have to get Destroyer and Godzilla to fight each other so that Destroyer can stop Godzilla from exploding. So their idea is to lure Godzilla's son into Tokyo.
Godzilla Jr., is that what we call his
Godzilla Jr., yes, that's what he's called, yeah. Who has like a psychic connection to this other person, but they lure him in so that Destroyer will just like beat his fucking ass to get Godzilla to come and save his son. So they do that, and like this movie is like really, its climax is really dark because Destroyer murders Godzilla's son, beats the ever-living shit out of Godzilla, and then Godzilla eventually, with the help of people, kills Destroyer, but then Godzilla goes into a nuclear meltdown. His entire body melts. Like, it is incredible effects work. His like flesh burns off of his bones and then like drips off of his frame.
Damn.
But they like shoot him with ice beams basically to like make the explosion not happen, but he still melts. So this is the only movie other than the original where Godzilla dies. Now, what's interesting is that Godzilla is not killed by his opponent. However, Godzilla's child is. So Destroyer is the only beast to successfully defeat a Godzilla, let's say. It's really me. He like fucking like shoots like he has like an alien mouth, you know, that like has another little mouth that shoots out. Yeah. He shoots that into fucking baby Godzilla's heart.
Oh. Whoa.
I cannot see this.
Baby Godzilla survives, fights back, does his best, buys enough time for Godzilla to get there, but Destroyer manages to pick, because Destroyer can fly, and he manages to pick baby Godzilla up, fly him really high, drop him down onto a building, and then just blasts him with energy beams. Dang. And you watch him die. He like dies slow, like slow blinking. It's really fucking sad.
Oh my God.
Now, one of the really cool things about the Heisei era movies
can't do this.
is they're the first ones where the monsters fucking bleed.
Whoa.
They don't bleed until like the 80s. And so there's like neon blood flying out of him. When baby Godzilla gets stabbed, his like mouth is foaming.
Biollante's got a lot of blood.
Yeah. But anyway, Godzilla melts down, dies, and you think that's the end of the movie, and then they like cut back, and where in the smoke left by Godzilla's burning corpse, another Godzilla stands.
Hell yeah.
And that's like the cliffhanger. And that's like the end of that kind of sequence of movies where those movies have some consistent characters in them. So Marty, the girl who has like the psychic connection in Biollante is also in all of those other ones of that era, including this one. She has a psychic connection with baby Godzilla. But yeah, it's like a really cool finisher. It's a really cool way to like close the loop that the device that killed Godzilla in the first one gave birth to this creature who he will face at the end of this kind of like franchise run.
Hell yeah.
And like nuclear meltdown Godzilla is so fucking tight because he's burning really hot, so he's super powerful, but he's also just like smoldering the entire time, like glowing orange. It's really cool. It doesn't have the like the emotional weight as some of these others, but it's a really fun monster movie.
So, like, where did you see that? Do we think Criterion's going to do another box set of this second era of Godzilla movies, or what?
I watched on probably the antithesis of this podcast, Pluto TV.
Oh, I actually have so much love for Pluto.
Yeah, dude, I got a lot of love for Pluto TV.
Pluto fucking rules, dude.
So I watched that there, but I don't know. I would hope that there would be, because like if Biollante is getting a 4K release, I don't see why maybe some of these others of that same era might not also get this similar treatment. I would love for that to happen. It is available on Blu-ray. I really recommend it as just like, especially if you're like starting to feel familiar with the franchise. It's a really fun one to get into.
Yeah, Sony put out some of those, and they're usually like a double feature.
Oh, cool.
In the same set, but they're each on their own disc, and they're totally solid releases, very competent.
Well, gentlemen, we did it. We talked Godzilla. I'm inspired to see some more of these sequels. This has been a lovely little crash course.
The original Mechagodzilla stuff's awesome. If people have not seen that, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, also shout out to Invasion of Astro Monster, which has an alien race who all dress like sci-fi medieval Renaissance Europeans.
Shit, I haven't
With
seen that one,
sunglasses
but now I'm sold.
It's fucking awesome.
Drew Hanks, Joel Jensen, thank you so much for joining us and bringing all of your Godzilla wisdom.
Thank you. This is my dream. I do have a Godzilla tattoo. I forgot to mention.
You do.
That's how much I like Godzilla. But yes, thank you for having me. This is I could talk about this for so much longer.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is I look at this as therapy, so thank you guys. I really needed it. I needed this session.
We're so happy to have you guys here.
Yeah, no, these are some awesome releases. Very powerful discs.
Assuming you don't have a wish, Joel, you can peace out if you want.
What should I wish for? I don't know what I'm supposed to wish for.
Wish for anything. Wish for Godzilla vs. Destroyer on 4K.
We wish every episode we wish for a 4K upgrade for something that's only on Blu-ray.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to wish for.
Okay,
I
great.
wish for...
Hang on.
Wait.
Hang on. Shut the fuck up, Joel.
We chant, Joel, and you'll get the idea. Gentlemen, here we go.
I
wish for a box set of the second era of Godzilla movies from Criterion. Let's get 3 book-shaped box sets from Criterion of the Godzilla eras.
I wish for a second sight release of Takashi Miike's Visitor Q, staying in Japan.
I wish for, with the Heisei box set release from Criterion, original Heisei era posters from those movies. Google search those posters. They go so hard. They're incredible.
I wish for a 4K of Bong Joon-ho's Host.
Ooh, good call.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, prior to this whole conversation, I love a giant monster movie. I want this second era. It'd be so fun to be able to have the coffee table book style box sets from Criterion of the rest of the movies. Sign me up for it. That would really encourage me to buy all of them.
I just watched Second Sight's release of Tangerine, the Sean Baker film shot on an iPhone, and it was just such an amazing mastering and authorization job that they did that I was just thinking to myself, what are other shot on video or sort of films that I would want my favorite distribution company to put out there? And Takashi Miike's Visitor Q, a straight to video shot on digital video film from 2001, dark comedy, very fucked up, kind of your sort of like Pasolini Tiorama like setup of a stranger that comes to a family's house and fucks shit up.
Never seen it. Sounds great.
Make my wish come true, guys.
Bong Joon-ho's 2006 monster movie, The Host. I haven't seen it in a long time. It's about a river monster that attacks Seoul, and I remember being very funny and scary, and I definitely don't think I'd ever seen another Bong Joon-ho movie when I had seen that film for the first time, so I'd love to revisit it on 4K, knowing who he is.
You really simply must look up the poster art for the Heisei era Godzilla movies. It's like kind of psychedelic, Frank Frazetta-esque, gorgeous, vibrant, really, really, really cool stuff. So definitely get a look at those. They're gorgeous.
And just wanted to mention, one of my wishes has come true. Night of the Jugglers coming out on 4K.
Yes, that's
so
right.
Cannot wait.
Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going.
Okay, that is it for another episode of Physical Therapy. Thank you all very much for listening. Thank you to Patrick Laban for our wonderful music. Thank you to Kimberly for producing. Thank you to our special guests. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you for having me. I'm so fucking always happy to be here.
We love you, Drew. Thank you very much,
you guys.
Joel Jensen.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege.
We love you both. You guys will be back.
I'll see everybody in person in about a month. Cannot
Yes,
wait.
you will.
Oh, can't wait.
Cannot wait.
Oh, it's going to be so
It
much
will
fun.
be so fun.
I'm going to stomp through your wedding like Godzilla, knocking everything over, taking secret shots in each hand.
Joel, I'm going to stick my tiny mouth out of my big mouth and rip out your heart and drop you onto a fucking building.
Oh my god.